first tornado that you see it on TV, first one that I've actually walked into. You know, May 3rd, it came through around 9 p.m. Colleen was watching the weather. We were watching. I told my wife, it came across 35. I said, man, that is heading right towards, you know, Frontera. 6:30 when I got here, of course, walked through here. When you walked out, this was covered. We had a covered shed here, and it just looked like it was rubble. Just a bomb had gone off. We had a side-by-side. We had just parked at the dock here. And, of course, the building here was gone. The tin was blown over next door. But the side-by-side had been blown and was flipped upside down on top of all these transmissions. And the only thing that kept them going is this fence kind of stopped the pileup.
I would say the first sign that we knew a tornado hit Frontera was watching the news and learning about 3 18-wheelers that had rolled over on 35. And looking on Google and kind of watching the news and seeing what crossroads that accident had happened at, we knew that was just east or west of our yard. And we're like, oh man, the storm's going northeast. It hit Frontera, and of course we were watching our cameras at the time too, and we lost all power, and we knew something had happened. And at that point, we were trying to get a hold of our driver and mechanic who lived on the facility, and we couldn't get a hold of anybody.
So I believe I'm going to go ahead and say that we have an unconfirmed tornado north of Forreston, south of Waxahachie, right here in the Neenah area. So and it's right across 35. We may very well have just seen a tornado. There could be a tornado going right across I-35 in US 77 right now, right at this very moment. If you are anywhere in this area, please, for the love of all that is holy, take shelter now. We have not had a tornado on the ground in Ellis County, certainly not this area, for a while. This needs to be taken as seriously as it possibly can.
Obviously, when you're sitting at home, there wasn't a whole lot you could do about it. There was some worry because I had one employee living on the property in a travel trailer, 2 employees on the property next door living in travel trailers. One of them had a 5-year-old daughter. He was my driver, Rob.
Rob and Paisley and Dwayne were in their campers over near that tree, and they didn't think the tornado was going to come near them. So Rob and Dwayne decided to stay. When they realized that it was too late to leave and that it was happening, Rob, Paisley's father, wrapped her up in a towel. She was asleep, just held on to her for dear life. It destroyed their camper, and it threw them. She didn't know anything until basically she woke up when they landed. Rob, it crossed his mind trying to make it back to his pickup truck, kind of in the middle of the storm or the tornado. And thankfully, quite frankly, they couldn't, because we saw that pickup truck after and it was just horrible. It was beat up. Over here at Frontera vehicle sales, there were just empty cars, like shells of cars, that the motors and transmissions had been pulled, so they were lighter, and they told us that they were just flying through the air. And neighbors came and told us they found a car on their property. It could have been so much worse, and God was definitely looking out for them, and we're very thankful that they're okay. Paisley, that night, I was so relieved after we saw her at the hospital, and she was excited to tell us that she was in a tornado. And she was okay. I have heard that they're not fans of storms now, and I don't blame them.
we first arrived at Frontera, once the police departments let us through the roadblocks, they had everything blocked off. We pulled into the yard, and really at first I didn't think it was really that bad because our main office building was still standing. Of course, our fences and our gates were all blown down, but it was once I was able to go into the office, and we found our dog Axel, who survived the storm. Found out he was okay. Okay, now it's time to assess the situation. So I started wandering around the building and was able to make it into our back 2 offices that really had severe damage from the big glass windows blowing out. Then from there, I walked out to the back of our yard, and none of our shops or buildings were there. Everything was completely destroyed and missing. All that was left was just slabs of concrete and some of our heavy equipment that did survive, but was damaged.
Next morning on the way to work, I got here about 6:30. I called Dad about 6, and he said, "What do you think?" "I don't think it's going to be that bad, son." And when you walked in, I walked through the office. First came to my office, which is right here. Saw the devastation, but when I walked out back, it really pretty much looked like a bomb had just gone off. The weird thing about it in here was my desk was here. Of course, this wall sucked out. This table was here, and it broke the glass. I had pictures on this wall, and this wall. These 3 walls here. Well, these pictures were gone. These pictures didn't move, and the picture here didn't move. So it was kind of weird, I guess, the suction, and I believe the only thing that kept this wall from completely blowing out was the canopy over there. We parked golf carts, had a side-by-side. This office in the other end was primarily where the wall sucked out. Of course, it flooded. The water line got up close to the outlets here.
Well, I was at the house. I was coming in late that morning, and then I get a phone call from Donnie, Colleen, and Brad saying, "Hey, a tornado hit the place, and it's bad." I'm thinking, "Well, what's bad?" We got a junkyard here. And they said, "No, it's really bad. You need to come out." We only had 1 building basically left on our property, and one of them had the roof blown off, but everything else was gone. All of our fences. The only one fence we left was the one on 35 where we have our scripture out there. On that fence blown down. Everything was blown down. All of our sheds, everything, all was destroyed. And we looked at it and said, "Okay, there it is."
My dad opened in 1980, and you walk out and see, what you built for 41 years, wiped out in a matter of 8 or 10 minutes.
So obviously the night was horrific and torture and one of the longest nights of my life. Once we found out that our employees were safe, our next concern was on Axel because he was in our office building, and I kept it together until we saw him and saw he was okay, and then I lost it, and I was so thankful he was okay. He just has a little storm PTSD now. Thankfully, the back part of our office took most of the damage, and we had him in the office with all the office doors shut, and all the windows, all the doors, everything where he was, they didn't blow out, they stayed. So we're very thankful.
This office here is Martine, my salesman's office, and I think it took pretty much the brunt of the hit. This, of course, obviously, some of this was twisted. Some of the red iron that supports it's twisted, got the window, but this was probably, as far as wind damage, this was probably the worst office, followed by mine at the other end. Of course, Colleen's office is here next door, and it was it was leaking pretty bad on the top when we got here. But the weird thing is, it sucked out this window, it sucked out the window in my office, but the window in Colleen's office there wasn't blown out. I would like to give a big shout out to my crew, all my employees, because they, after the shock of seeing the damage that was done, they immediately, without being told what to do, started the process of the cleanup. That's from the secretary down to all the employees in the yard. They did a great job, sped up the process, and really helped us get through the cleanup aftermath.
Well, you know, my first thought is that, you know, God allowed that to happen for a reason, because he always does. If he has a bad situation, he'll make it good. And I think he's helped us, first place, to get closer to him, because it could have been a lot worse. And he wants us to rebuild this place. That's basically what we're doing. We're rebuilding everything all over again. You know, we're starting over, basically. Like it was when we started in '79. We had to build everything. So here we go again. Well, I think it's going to make us a better company. I think we realize that, you know, this company has been here since 1979. We started it. And I think it'll make us better because we've seen what can happen. A lot of the change that we need to make in our yard, in our office, in our buildings. We're gonna rebuild them. We can't make them any stronger than they were, but I think it's like God tells us, okay, let's start over and let's do it a little bit better. So we're doing that.
You know, Frontera's had its hardships, but I think in the end, this will really make our company stronger as a whole. And it's really opened a lot of doors. You know, we're able to change a lot of stuff, how we do on our yard. We're able to rebuild our buildings a little bit differently and try and work towards bigger goals in the company and maybe expanding and taking on different adventures.
What it's done, though, I think it's maybe refocused us on running the business, you know, what your priorities are, and we're gonna get through it. We're gonna survive it and be stronger for it.